I'm going to read a little bit of a story today. If you don't have time to watch this now, you can watch the replay later. This is a short illustrated book about our founder, Anita. It's written in more of an easy to understand language, very short book, kind of aimed more at kids. But I think it's a great way for you to get to know the story, so I'm going to read. Okay. It's 15 chapters, I think, so I'll see if my kids interrupt and need to get in from their school time. If they need me before, then I'll just pause and keep recording. But for now, pull up your chair, grab a blanket, cup of coffee or tea, and enjoy some story time with me. Okay. Chapter 1, Dreams of Glory. Little Anita Perella sat there, supposedly doing homework, actually daydreaming at a table in her mother's empty cafe. In the kitchen, her mother was stirring a big pot of spaghetti and singing, "That's amore." Anita's mother, Gilda, was singing with an Italian accent because she grew up in Italy. In the empty cafe, Anita dreamed about what she wanted to be when she grew up. It was a long dream. "I'll be a teacher, Mum, and I'll be a lot nicer than the nuns at St. Catherine's. No, I'll be a famous actress, and I'll meet James Dean, and he'll fall madly in love with me. No, wait a minute. I'll become an explorer. Yes, that's it. I'll explore places nobody's ever explored before. Oh, I've got it. I'll be a brilliant writer. That's what I'll do. Or, hold on, maybe I'll become a cool detective and catch criminals." From the kitchen, Gilda said, "You know something, Anita? You're one crazy kid." Chapter 2, a crazy kid. Anita didn't mind her mother calling her a crazy kid because she'd rather be crazy than dull. She didn't need to worry about that. Everything she did differently. Like the time Gilda took her to a talent contest at St. Catherine's School. All the other kids dressed up in their best clothes and recited a little poem or sang a little song. Then Anita's turn came. The lights dimmed. The curtain went up. A single spotlight shone on little Anita. She didn't recite a little poem. She didn't sing a little song. She wasn't wearing the best little clothes. Anita was wearing dirty old rags and heavy metal chains. Instead of reciting "This Sceptered Isle" or singing "I'm a Little Teapot," she let out one long, loud, and extremely scary scream. It sounded exactly like this. "Yay! Gilda jumped. The whole audience jumped. Then, at the top of her little lungs, Anita bellowed a speech about how great it felt to be crazy. As Anita took her bow, Gilda muttered, "I knew that's a crazy kid." And Gilda was the most surprised person at the show when the principal announced, "We are pleased to award first prize to little Anita Perella." Chapter 3, Makeup. The Perella family was much too poor to afford makeup, but that didn't stop Anita. In high school, when she was in her actress phase, Anita knew she needed makeup, and she knew where to find it, free. She used the leftovers from the cafe. She smeared soot from the candles on her eyelids. That was her eyeshadow. She poured mayonnaise on her hair to make it shine. She washed her face with potatoes instead of soap. She painted beet juice on her lips. "That's my lipstick." Anita told her friends, "You try it." They did try it. Then they ate the beets. Then they had a contest to see who had the reddest pea. Yes, little Anita made her own cosmetics out of food, and when she got older, she still did. Chapter 4, On the Road. After college, Anita started teaching. Anita liked teaching, but she had an itch to travel, so she applied for a summer study trip to Israel. And when the letter arrived that said, "Shalom, Anita," Anita said, "Bye, Mum, I'm gone." After Israel, Anita went to France. After France, she went to Greece. After Greece, she went to Switzerland. After Switzerland, she went to Tahiti, Australia, and finally South Africa. Anita didn't last long in South Africa. Here's what happened. In 1967, when she went there, White people ruled South Africa. They had passed strict laws that made it a crime for black people to eat or sleep or even live next door to whites. They said it was for the black people's own good. They said that everybody, black and white, liked the strict laws. Anita listened politely. Then she said, in the same loud voice she'd used at her school's talent contest, "That is the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard in my entire life. I didn't pick my friends by the color of their skin, and I don't let anyone pick my friends for me, see?" To prove her point, Anita went to a jazz club where only black people were allowed to go. To prove their point, the South African police said, "Young lady, you have exactly 24 hours to get out of the country, starting right now." Which is why Anita came back to England in such a hurry, and how Anita fell in love. Chapter 5. Love Stuff. No sooner had Anita arrived home in Littlehampton when her mom Gilda said, "Ooh, Anita, there's this fella you gotta meet. You're gonna love him. You'll see him tonight at my new club, the El Cabana." That night, Anita went to the El Cabana. Gordon was already there. Gilda said, "Anita, meet Gordon. Gordon, meet Anita." "Ooh, I think I hear the phone ringing. I've got to go answer it." Anita looked at Gordon. Gordon looked at Anita. Gilda, from behind a curtain, looked at both of them, and she sang, "When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore." All that night, Gordon and Anita walked and talked. The next day they met again, and again they walked and talked. The next day they again, and again they walked and talked. The next day they met again, and again they walked and talked. The next day they moved in together. The next year they had a baby together. They named her Justine. The next year they got married. Even then they didn't do things the same way as most people. Here's how they got married. Chapter 6. How they got married. One day Anita said, "Gordon, I have something to tell you." She paused dramatically. "I'm pregnant. We're going to have another baby." She paused again, even more dramatically. "Gordon, let's go on a trip to celebrate. We'll go to the United States, to San Francisco, to see our hippie friends." She paused to see if Gordon had passed out. "And we'll take Justine. She's 15 months old almost, and the travel will broaden her horizons. We'll just buy a pack, and I'll carry her on my back. Let's do it, Gordon, let's go." And that's just what they did. They flew last class. One day, Gordon and Anita and Justine and their hippie friends drove to Reno, Nevada. Reno is famous for 3 things: big-time gambling, quick divorces, and even quicker marriages. Gordon and Anita couldn't gamble. They had no money. They couldn't divorce. They weren't yet married. That left only 2 options. A, leave town, or B, scrape together $25, borrow a ring from their hippie friends, and get hitched. They chose option B. For her wedding, Anita wore tattered corduroy pants, a red rain slicker, and old sneakers. Her big belly stuck out in front while Justine howled and hiccuped on her back. The bride looked lovely, just lovely. The night she and Gordon spent their romantic honeymoon in a cheap motel room with Justine and their hippie friends. Then they came back to Littlehampton, had a second little girl, whom they named Samantha, and bought a little old hotel. They worked day and night and day in the hotel. Then they opened a restaurant. They worked day and night and day in the hotel and the restaurant. When they ran out of days and nights and days, they sold the restaurant, which turned out to be just as well, in light of Gordon's secret desire. Here's an actual photo. There we go. There's some more great photos in here too. Chapter 7. Gordon's secret desire. One night Gordon said, "Anita, there's something I very much want to do." "What is it, love?" "I've wanted to do it for years and years." "What is it, love?" "You could say it's my secret desire." "What is it, love?" Yes?" "I want to go on a horse ride." "A horse ride? Well, that's fine, love. Will you be back in time for lunch?" Gordon shook his head. "For dinner?" Gordon shook his head. "So you'll just be gone overnight?" Gordon shook his head. "A couple of days? A week?" Gordon shook his head. Anita's voice grew quiet. "A month? A whole month?" Gordon shook his head. 2 years, Anita. I want to ride a horse from Buenos Aires, Argentina, to New York, USA. When Anita came to, she said, well, what would you say when you came to? What would you say if your husband announced that he wanted to leave you and your 2 young daughters and an old hotel and almost no money for 2 years so he could ride a horse from Argentina to New York? Here's what Anita said. Well, love, if that's your secret desire, you'd better do it. And we'd better think of something for me to do on my own while you're gone. Something that will leave me more time for the children. Something that will earn us money. What would you like, Anita? Whatever it is, I'll help you in every way. Oh, I don't know, Anita thought for a moment. Maybe a little shop. Chapter 8. Extremely annoying. The next day, Anita told her mother about Gordon's trip and about wanting to open a little shop. Gilda looked at her and said, What are you going to sell in this little shop? Cosmetics. Cosmetics? What's cosmetics? You know, shampoo and perfume and face cream, things like that. Honey, Gilda said, there's an awful lot of cosmetic shops around already. Yes, but I find them all extremely annoying. Why? Well, for one thing, they only sell one size of everything. If I want to try something new, I have to buy a big bottle. Then if I don't like it, I can't return it. Anita sounded extremely annoyed. Okay, so what else? Well, a lot of time I think I'm paying more for some fancy container than the stuff it contains. Boy, does that make me mad. Anita was turning red. Calm down, honey. No, there's more. Most of these companies test their cosmetics on animals. A lot of the time they hurt the animals or even kill them. That's disgusting. Disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. Anita turned redder. You're getting overexcited, Anita. Take a deep breath. Calm yourself. I am calm. I have never been calmer. I am the very picture of calm. But listen to this. A lot of the stuff you buy comes right out of the chemistry set. It's all chemicals. This might sound crazy, Mum, but I want to sell cosmetics with natural ingredients. Natural ingredients? Yes, natural ingredients. Like cocoa butter. In Tahiti, the women rub cocoa butter all over themselves. It keeps their skin so soft and smooth. I want to sell natural stuff like that, Mum. Do you think I'm crazy? Gilda looked at her daughter for a long time. Then she sighed and said, Honey, this time I think you're one smart cookie. You feeling better now? The very next day, Anita set off to find a little shop. It had to be cheap. She found a little shop in Brighton. It was very cheap. The roof leaked, the floor sagged, and nobody had rented it for a long, long time. Maybe because the insides were covered with, here's a hint, it smells and it's green. Chapter 9. Cease and desist. Besides a leaking roof and a sagging floor, the little shop in Brighton had one more charming feature. It had mold. Mold is a fungus that grows in dark, damp places. Places like shops with leaking roofs. 2 other things you should know about mold are A, it smells, B, it's green. Anita scraped and sprayed and cleaned, trying to rid of that mold. But no matter what she did, she could not get rid of A, the smell, B, the green. Finally, she had a bright idea. I know, she announced to herself as she scrubbed the foul green walls for the 111th time. I know. I'll cover this yucky smell with wonderful smells of flowers and perfumes, and I'll cover this icky green mold with pretty green paint. That is why every branch of the Body Shop all over the world smells so sweet, and why each one is painted green. After painting till her arms were sore, Anita, finally ready to open for business on Saturday, March 27th, 1976. At exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, Anita unlocked the little front door of her shop and put up a big sign that said in bright gold letters, The Body Shop. Now, this may sound innocent enough, but as things turned out, it wasn't. Before a day had passed, she got a letter from a lawyer. The letter said something like this. Kindly cease and desist from advertising, promoting, or in any way whatsoever describing your emporium as The Body Shop. Translated into English, this means, take it down, that blasted sign, Anita. Why did the lawyer send Anita this letter? Because he was working for 2 other businesses very near her store. And why didn't the other 2 businesses very near her store want a sign out front that read The Body Shop? Because the 2 businesses very near her store were, can you guess? Because the businesses very near her store were undertakers. Anita, always calm, always reasonable, said, "Stuff 'em. The sign stays." Just to make sure it stayed, she called the newspaper and told them about these mean undertakers ganging up on some poor, that part was true, defenseless, that part wasn't, woman who was trying to feed her children while her husband rode a horse across South America. The paper printed the story. The sign stayed. Chapter 10. The Scent of a Woman. It's one thing to buy a moldy old shop and turn it into something nice. It's another thing to make all the stuff you're going to sell in that shop. But that's what Anita had to do. She knew what she wanted, but not how to get it. When she called the suppliers who sold the ingredients for cosmetics, the conversation went like this. Anita, I'm opening a new shop and I need some ingredients. Supplier, that's what we're here for. Anita, good, I'll take 3 gallons of cocoa butter and 1 Supplier, what? What's cocoa butter? Anita, it's what I need 3 gallons of. Supplier, lady, are you a chocolate shop? Anita, no, I'm a cosmetic shop. Supplier, then you must be cracked like a coconut. People eat cocoa, they don't smear it on their face. Anita, heavy sigh. Finally, Anita phoned an herbalist. Now the conversation went like this. Anita, you don't by the remotest chance have cocoa butter, do you? Herbalist, certainly, madame. Cocoa butter and jojoba oil and almond oil and aloe vera and strawberry oil and... Anita, I'll be right over. Anita spent that night and the next night and the next night mixing up big batches of cocoa butter and jojoba oil and almond oil and aloe vera and 20 other natural ingredients. When her arms were too tired to mix any more, she hauled them over to her new green shop. Then Anita took oil of strawberry and sprinkled it all over the pavement, and she poured strawberry oil over the front of her store. She thought, people will smell that delicious smell and they'll follow it right into my shop. Am I clever or what? She was clever, all right, and the people came. And they found that Anita had turned that wet, dirty building into a country store filled with dried flowers and delicious smells. Along the walls were 25 different cosmetics in 5 different sizes of plain bottles. The bottles were filled with cosmetics made from honey and oatmeal, cucumber and seaweed, avocado and hawthorn, and yes, cocoa butter. The customers bought them all. Pretty soon, Anita wanted to open another store of the Body Shop. With some help, that's just what she did. Chapter 11. Bad News, Good News. Meanwhile, back in South America, Gordon was riding his horse. He rode through Argentina. He rode through Peru. He'd ridden halfway through Bolivia when something terrible happened. Something really terrible. Gordon's horse fell over a cliff and died. Gordon and the horse were pals. They'd been together for 2,000 miles. When the horse died, Gordon flew back to Littlehampton. Gordon kissed Justine. He kissed Samantha. He kissed Gilda. He kissed Anita. He kissed Anita again, and he asked her, "What can I do to help?" Anita looked at him with love in her eyes, and she answered, "Bottling?" Bottling. Anita hated bottling. It meant pouring honey and oatmeal scrub mask and seaweed and birch shampoo and cucumber cleansing milk and avocado moisture cream and hawthorn hand cream and cocoa butter body lotion and a whole lot of other stuff from 5-gallon containers into 5 different sizes of plastic bottles and tubs. She was sick and tired of it. "Gordon, I'm sick and tired of it," she said. "Will you do it for me?" Gordon said only 3 words. "As you wish." Chapter 12. R-I-C-H. By working day and night and day, and by working full-time and overtime and daylight saving time and Greenwich Mean Time, Anita and Gordon and the people who worked with them made the 2 stores of the Body Shop a rip-roaring success. So they opened another branch of the Body Shop, and another, and another. And all of a sudden there were shops in England and Belgium and Iceland and Denmark and Greece and Canada. And there were a lot of shops. And for the first time in her life, Anita found she was R-I-C-H. She opened a bottle of champagne. She took a deep breath and she said, "Let's use the money to make the world a better place." And that's just what she did. The Body Shop started by helping Greenpeace. Greenpeace is a group that protects the seas from people who dump poisons in them and protects whales from people who want to slaughter them. The Body Shop helped Friends of the Earth, a group that protects the earth from people who dump poisons in the air, in the earth, and in the water. The Body Shop helped Cultural Survival, a group that protects the tribes who live in the rainforest from people who want to chase them out and chop the forest down. The Body Shop helped sign up 1,000 new members to Amnesty International, a group that protects people who get locked up simply because of things they believe in. Why did they do all of this? Why do they still do it? Because Anita believes that businesses have to give something back to the world. Chapter 13. The Rain in Spain. The Body Shop was a success. The company that started with one little shop in Brighton became one of the Great Britain's biggest exporters. That means they sold more stuff overseas than almost any other company. That's why the Queen of England sent Anita this letter stamped with the royal seal. Her Royal Majesty is pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to the Order of the British Empire. Yoicks, Anita shouted. They're going to give me an OBE. Justine said, then we'll have to get you some new clothes for when the Queen hands you your medal. Samantha said, I suppose you're going to accept this meaningless gesture from an obsolete and archaic monarchy? Anita said, too right I am. Come on, you two. Let's buy Mama a new dress. With her daughter's help, Anita got the right dress for the ceremony. But that's the only thing she got right. Her trouble started with hats. Sorry, Mum, Justine said, but you've got to have a hat as well. Women are expected to wear hats when they meet the Queen of England. Why? Anita asked. Why? I'll tell you why, Sam shouted. So they can show the world that they're lackeys to the patriarchal imperialist monarchist. Thank you, darling, Anita said, and thank you for your fashion advice, Justine, but I'm not wearing a hat. I look daft in hats. Justine sighed. But, Mum, no buts and no hats either. Chapter 14. The Queen and I. When she reached the huge auditorium, Anita quickly observed that she was the only woman in the entire hall who was sans chapeau, hatless. She began to worry that she should have listened to Justine. Just then, a very well-dressed man said, Please, may I have your complete attention? I am here to instruct you on how to act in the presence of the Queen. The group grew quiet. Thank you, said the well-dressed but hatless man. One by one, you are to walk slowly, slowly, down the carpet to where Her Majesty is seated. When you reach Her Royal Majesty, Mrs. Roddick, are you listening? Yes, sorry. Anita was muttering to herself about hats. Thank you. When you reach Her Royal Majesty, you stop and curtsy. Very nice, Miss Roddick. Once you've curtsied, the Queen might ask you a brief question, and if so, you may respond with a brief answer. Please be brief. Here he looked hard at Anita. Her Majesty has many people to honor today. Anita smiled and said, I'll be brief. The man continued, Once the brief pleasantries have concluded, Her Majesty will hand you your medal and shake your hand. Once she does that, you'll curtsy again. Finally, you turn left and walk out of the auditorium. Now, is that clear? Anita wanted to say, Excuse me? Would you go over that one more time? But just then, the well-dressed man turned to her and said, Mrs. Roddick, it's your turn. Anita took her first step down the aisle. Right, she murmured, I'm off. She walked up to the Queen. She curtsied. She didn't fall down. Why, this isn't so hard, she thought. What was I so worried about? And how are your projects going in America, Mrs. Roddick? The Queen asked. Big mistake, Queen. Oh, very well, Your Majesty, very well indeed. You see, we're opening this huge factory in North Carolina. Well, when I say huge, I mean the size of a dozen football fields. Well, maybe 10 football fields. Oh, well, let's call it 11 football fields. This place is going to be big. Anyway, it's in North Carolina. That's south of Washington, you know, and north of, let's see, it's north of Miami. Yes, it's definitely north of Miami. And the ahem wasn't very loud, but it was right by Anita's ear. It was the kind of ahem that even if you weren't right by your ear, and even if it weren't said by the well-dressed man who had suddenly appeared right by your ear, would stop you dead in your tracks, which is just what it did to Anita's story. The well-dressed man smiled at Anita. His smile said, Stop talking now. With the tiniest nod of his head, he pointed to the door. Right, then, Your Majesty, Anita said, I'll just be going. With that, she turned around and marched down the aisle and out the door. Gilda and Gordon and Justine and Sam were all waiting for her. Well, they asked, well, I'll admit I had a rocky moment or two, but in the end I got it right. I met the Queen and collected my medal, and that's that. Let's go to lunch, I'm starving. So where's the medal? Gilda asked. Anita went white. She went red. She went purple. She suddenly remembered three things. She'd gone out the wrong way. She'd forgotten to curtsy on her way out, and she'd forgotten, it's true, she'd forgotten the bloomin' medal. Last chapter. The Minister of Surprises. When Anita was little, she wanted to be everything when she grew up. Now when you ask Anita what she wants to be when she grows up, she says, I want to be the Minister of Surprises. Well, she started with one store, the Body Shop, and now there are more than 1,500. She opened one little shop in a little town of England, and now there are shops in more than 46 countries. She began life in a poor Italian family, and now she's the big cheese of a huge international company. She used to make cosmetics out of food, and she still makes cosmetics out of food. And other things too. She started out with strong ideals. She wanted to help make the world a better place. Now she and the staff of the Body Shop all over the world still help make the world a better place. Anita wants to be the Minister of Surprises. Some people think she already is. The end of the story ends with a dozen things you can do for animals and for the world and for each other. And I'll save that for another day. As well as a little timeline of the greatest hits of the Body Shop, and I'll put that up for you guys too. Thank you very much for listening to Storytime, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Anita.